The moment I found the photograph tucked behind my son's old dresser, everything I thought I knew about him shattered. It wasn't some harmless childhood picture or a forgotten memory. No, this was a photo of him standing beside a woman I had never seen before, holding a baby that definitely wasn't his daughter, and smiling like he was living a whole different life. And taped to the back of that photo was a folded document, something that made my knees go weak. I stared at it for a solid minute before I finally sank onto the floor, my hands shaking. Tell me honestly, what would you do if you suddenly discovered your child had an entire secret, past you never knew about? Because I'm still trying to understand if the decisions I made after that moment were right or not. To make sense of how everything spiraled out of control, I guess I need to start from the beginning. My son, Daniel, was the kind of kid other parents praised when they thought I wasn't listening. Respectful, quiet, hardworking, and incredibly protective of his younger sister, Mia. After my husband died 12 years ago, Daniel stepped into a role no teenager should have to take on. He helped me with bills, made dinners, tutored Mia through school, and rarely complained. I honestly believed the hardship matured him early, shaped him into a man who valued honesty and responsibility. I thought I knew every part of him. I raised him. I watched him grow. But after finding what I found, I realized there were years of his life, entire chapters that he had chosen to bury so deep even we, his family, were never meant to know. Daniel is 20, 6 now, living a few blocks from me with his wife, Emily, and their daughter. Until recently, our relationship was solid. He visited often, called every few days, and even insisted on fixing things around my house despite working long hours. Emily didn't like him running himself ragged, but I assumed her frustration came from wanting more help with their toddler. I never suspected it was something deeper, something darker, something that made her watch him with the kind of suspicion you'd reserve for a stranger, not your own husband. I only found the photograph because Daniel asked me to grab some old tools from his childhood room. The dresser drawer jammed, and when I yanked it harder, the back panel popped loose. The picture fell out like it had been waiting for years to be found. It wasn't the woman or the baby that froze me. It was Daniel's expression. He looked young, maybe 19 or 20, but not in a carefree way. He looked relieved, like whatever life he had in that photo was the life he really wanted. My heart pounded as I turned the photo over. Behind it was a folded document, an old custody filing, never completed, never submitted. And at the top of the form, written in black ink, was Daniel's full name. He had been trying to petition for custody of that child years before he ever met Emily, a child I had never even heard of. My own son, a father who had kept his child a secret. I didn't know what to think. My mind raced through every possibility. Was he forced into something? Was this some misunderstanding? But deep down, I felt something twist in my stomach, because Daniel had never been reckless. He had never been careless. He had always been responsible to a fault. So why would he hide something this enormous? And what happened to that baby? That night, I barely slept. I kept rehearsing what I'd say to him, how I'd ask without making him feel cornered. The next day, I called and told him to come over. He arrived looking tired, stressed, and impatient, which was unlike him. When I showed him the photo, he didn't deny it. He didn't pretend not to know. Instead, he just sat down at the kitchen table, rubbed his face, and whispered, "I was hoping you'd never find out." Hoping I'd never find out. Those words hit harder than anything. He finally told me everything, well, at least the version he was willing to share. When he was younger, he'd been in a relationship with a woman named Lee. She struggled with addiction, came from a rough background, and relied on Daniel more than she should have. When she got pregnant, she begged him to stay with her, but he was barely an adult himself, juggling school, a job, and responsibilities at home. He tried to help, he really did, but she spiraled deeper into problems he couldn't fix. When the baby was born, Daniel wanted to be a father, but Lee blocked him at every turn unless he gave her money. When he finally attempted to file for custody, she disappeared with the baby. He never saw either of them again. I sat there, stunned. My son had lived all of this alone. He carried grief, guilt, fear, and the loss of a child while raising his sister and supporting me through my worst years. And he never said a word. When I asked why he didn't tell us, why he hid it from his wife, he became defensive. I didn't want anyone to think I was irresponsible, he said. I didn't want Emily to think I had some messy past. I didn't want you to worry. But secrets don't stay buried forever, especially not ones like this. A few days after he told me the truth, everything blew up. Emily found the documents too. I don't know how. Maybe she noticed his stress. Maybe he acted strange. Maybe she'd been suspicious long before I ever knew something was off. Either way, she confronted him, and unlike me, she didn't handle it quietly or calmly. She called me screaming, crying, asking if I knew her husband had fathered another child and lied to her for their entire marriage. I tried to calm her, tried to explain the context, but she was too hurt to listen. When Daniel arrived at my house minutes later, she was right behind him, and before either of them stepped through the front door, they were arguing loud enough that the neighbors peeked through their curtains. She demanded to know everything: dates, names, details. She wanted to know why he hid it, if he had cheated on her early in their relationship, if the child still existed somewhere, if he was paying secret child support, if there were more secrets he hadn't told her. Her pain made sense. Her anger made sense. But Daniel didn't help himself. He shut down, refused to answer her rapid-fire questions, insisted she was overreacting, which just made everything worse. Their marriage cracked right there on my front porch. The next few weeks were chaos. Daniel slept on my couch while Emily stayed home with their daughter. They barely spoke except through short texts about childcare schedules. I tried not to take sides, but watching my son unravel broke something in me. He lost weight, paced for hours, and kept his phone on silent, as if afraid of being confronted again. One night, he confessed he wasn't just scared of losing Emily. He was terrified that his past would come back through legal channels, that Lee might suddenly appear and drag him into another battle. "She took my child once," he whispered. "What if she takes my whole life again?" But his fear didn't excuse the one thing he refused to acknowledge: Emily deserved the truth. And so did I. And so did Mia, who kept asking why her big brother looked like he was holding back tears every time she stopped by. Around the midpoint of all this, I reached a moment where I didn't know what to do anymore. My son was falling apart. My daughter-in-law felt betrayed, and the secret that started all of this kept digging deeper fractures into our family. So let me ask you, if you were in my position, knowing everything I knew, knowing how fragile the situation had become, would you push your child to come clean completely, even if it risked destroying what was left of his marriage? Or would you protect him and help him keep certain things buried? Before I tell you the choice I made and what happened next, I genuinely want you to think about it. What would you have done? Well, I chose truth, all of it. One evening, when Emily came to pick up their daughter from my house, I asked her to stay for a moment. Daniel walked into the room already looking defeated. For the first time since everything started, I told them both that secrets, no matter how old, no matter how painful, don't protect relationships. They destroy them. I told Daniel that if he wanted any chance of saving his marriage, he needed to stop holding back. He needed to tell Emily everything he remembered, everything he tried, everything he feared. He needed to stop treating her like someone who couldn't handle the truth. What followed was one of the hardest conversations I've ever watched. Daniel talked for nearly 2 hours straight. He told her about Lee's addiction, the nights he'd stayed awake worrying the baby wasn't safe, the shame he felt for not being able to fix things, the guilt he carried for not finding them, fear that admitting his past made him less of a man. He confessed that he should have told her from the beginning, but cowardice got in the way. And finally, he admitted he still didn't know if that child, his first child, was out there somewhere. Emily cried the entire time, not because of the child, but because of the loneliness she heard in his voice. She had no idea how much pain he'd kept to himself, no idea how young he'd been when he went through all that. No idea how scared he still was. The big question was, could she forgive him? In the days that followed, she didn't give an immediate answer. Daniel stayed with me, Emily stayed home. They attended counseling separately, then together. Sometimes progress was made, sometimes everything backtracked. But something unexpected happened. Emily started asking questions, not to accuse him, but to understand him. She wanted to know what the baby looked like, what Daniel felt in that picture, what he would do if the child came looking for him one day. Instead of avoiding the past, she wanted to face it with him. 3 months later, they moved back in together. But the story didn't end there. A few weeks after they reconciled, Daniel received an email from a stranger, a woman claiming to be Lee's cousin. She said Lee had passed away 2 years ago, and the child, Daniel's child, had been living with Lee's aunt, but recently started asking questions about their father. The cousin asked if Daniel would be willing to talk. Daniel froze. Emily held his hand. I held my breath. After everything we'd gone through, after all the lies and healing and rebuilding, life was giving him something he never expected. Another chance. Eventually, he replied. Carefully, hesitantly, but he replied. He hasn't met the child yet, they're taking things slowly, but he's been video calling, sharing photos, and telling Emily everything as it happens. Their marriage isn't perfect, but it's stronger than before because it's finally honest. As for me, I'm still wrapping my head around the fact that I'm a grandmother twice over, even if I haven't met one of them in person yet. I think about that photo a lot, the one hidden behind the dresser. I think about how a single moment from the past can explode into the present and rearrange everything you thought you knew. I think about how many times Daniel must have stood in that room, wondering whether to destroy the picture or keep hiding it. If you want my honest opinion, the moral of this entire mess is simple. Secrets only protect you until the moment they don't. Then they burn everything down. If Daniel had trusted us years ago, if he had trusted Emily from the beginning, none of this would have exploded the way it did. But I also learned something else. Sometimes people hide their past not because they want to deceive you, but because they're terrified of reliving the pain inside it. So that's my story, the whole complicated, painful, unexpected truth. If you were on my side, if you think pushing for honesty was the right call, then like this video. Subscribe for more stories like this, and share your final thoughts in the comments. I really want to know what you think about everything we went through. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you all in the next story.